Hi, for this presentation I will be focused on the role of video feedback in the skill of Olympic weightlifting. I will look at motor skill development, feedback or augmented feedback, and then video feedback relating to this skill. There are a number of different theoretical models associated with skill acquisition. One that I am particularly familiar with, which was also used during my PE degree, was by Fitz and Posner. In their now classic theory, performance was characterized by three sequential stages, termed the cognitive, associative, and autonomous stages. The cognitive stage marks the period in which the task goals are established and used to determine the appropriate sequence of actions to achieve the desired goal. Learning at this stage generally involves the use of explicit knowledge. An athlete's decision to perform or attempt the snatch would constitute the cognitive stage. Once the action sequence has been determined, the learner enters the associative stage, in which action may be focused on specific details of the sequence, determining the appropriate subparts and transitions. This stage may require some exploration of the solution space, perhaps with one segment being overhauled to ensure that the overall action is executed in a smooth and coordinated manner. The final stage of learning is the autonomous stage, which we can see here in yellow. The phase in which the action is practiced to hone performance into an autonomized routine, otherwise known as flow. But each of these individuals must put in countless hours of practice required for high-end performance that results from the autonomous stage. The yellow boxes indicate the parts of cognitive phase and also associative phase. Feedback. There are two types of feedback, intrinsic and extrinsic. Here, Rose and Christina have stated that intrinsic feedback occurs as a natural result of movement or provided by extrinsic augmented sensory cues. Vestibular, cutaneous signal, proprioceptive and visual are intrinsic feedback and auditory tactile cues, and visual cues are extrinsic feedback. Augmented feedback about the end result or overall outcome of the movement is termed knowledge of performance, KP. This refers to the movement characteristics or biological processes that led to a particular outcome. For example, this can be the hip and knee angles during any of the Olympic lifts. Augmented feedback about nature or quality of the movement is termed knowledge of results, known as KR. For example, this could be how much weight they lifted in a particular lift. Most sports scientists and coaches agree that the conditions for practice influence motor skill acquisition. Because of this, practitioners must take many factors into consideration when creating practice schedules to develop an athlete's performance and prepare them for competition. Coaches then have two options for providing KP and/or KR feedback to their athletes. One method of providing KP to athletes is providing them information about the kinematics of their movement. This may include body or limb position, velocity, or acceleration, while KP provides information about movement characteristics of an athlete's performance. KR also provides coaches a means of conveying outcome-related information to athletes. As coaches, we are all aware that one of our most important roles in the process of motor skill learning is to give the learners or athletes with feedback information about their learning performance. The skill being learned and the availability of feedback from intrinsic sources. Research in motor learning and sport pedagogy reports that feedback has been found to enhance the acquisition of fine and gross motor skills. Research includes that carried out by Young and Schmidt, Reisberg, Schmidt, and also Schmidt. Augmented feedback, as researched by Hodge and Williams. The most common form of augmented feedback is augmented feedback, and it's also one of the most intuitive ways to improve whole body skills, i.e. motor skills. However, it might take time for the learner to acquire the skills to effectively use video feedback. They may require verbal KP that directs the learner's attention to important aspects of their performance. Fortunately, this area of skill acquisition has been well researched, so it is possible to assess the relative attributes of this type of feedback. The what, the when, and the how's variables by McGill and Anderson. The what's are knowledge of results, KRs. Information about the outcome of a performance attempt or whether or not the performance goal was achieved. McGill and Anderson go on to explain there are 5 reasons for this. 1. It can help learners confirm their own assessment of task intrinsic feedback. 2. It is necessary when task intrinsic feedback is unavailable, i.e. an injury. 3. It can motivate performers to continue learning the task. 4. It can encourage discovery learning. And finally, 5. It can encourage an external focus of attention. Then we move on to the when boxes. Following the schematic in the slide, a crucial question becomes when to provide this type of augmented feedback. There are 2 types. Concurrent augmented feedback is typically given during the performance of the task, and then terminal augmented feedback is typically given after a performance attempt. Weightlifting as a skill. Traditional weightlifting and Olympic weightlifting can be categorized as 2 different types of exercise focus. Traditional weightlifting typically improves the use of weights as tools to isolate and stress the muscles of the body in order for the muscles to grow, whereas Olympic weightlifting is categorized as a functional skill or movement in which the main goal is to lift a heavy weight with perfect technique. Olympic weightlifting lifts are frequently used as strengthening exercises for football or competitive Olympic weightlifting, as well as running and jumping sports. Olympic weightlifting has been a competitive sport for 3 centuries and has been mainstreamed to the general public and has increased over the past decade in the development of fitness programs such as CrossFit. In 2007, the first official CrossFit Games was opened and sparked an explosion of local, regional and national interest in the sport of weightlifting or Olympic weightlifting. Before the advent of video technology, coaches relied on providing verbal information and feedback as a means of instruction, and also modelling and or demonstrating what they want their athletes to do. During this time, research focused on the content of the information and feedback that was presented to the individual. More recently, technological progress has led sports pedagogists and physical educators to re-examine strategies for providing movement-related feedback and experiment with new learning aids. Rucci and Tomporowski stated that video feedback can be defined as the playback to a learner of his or her own image in action. It is an extrinsic or augmented source of feedback, since it involves additional information related to one's own actions that are not available without the use of an external aid. It differs from intrinsic feedback, which represents information that is detectable without external aids. It was expressively stated by Hazen et al. That athletes cannot simply be expected to improve based upon casual viewing of errors on a videotape. However, this is frequently the case in a variety of coaching settings, and I must say I've made that mistake myself as well. Video and verbal feedback. The majority of research examining the benefits of video feedback has concluded that effective results are dependent on the skill level, but not the task, age, or sex of the performer. If the exercise is novel, athletes will require accompanying input from the coach or trainer to optimize the benefits of video feedback. Unguided, as we mentioned earlier, novices tend to become overwhelmed with the amount of information in the video replay and may not be able to selectively attend to critical points of any complex move, or they may not have the knowledge. Therefore, in the case of an athlete learning a new lift, a combination of instructor verbal feedback and video replay is significantly better than if it is used separately. Video with direct instruction. In the last few years, motor learning researchers have investigated practice conditions that enhance motor skill acquisition. Susi et al. showed that combining feedback from self-observation with direct instruction is a powerful means of correcting technical errors in weightlifting movements compared to other conditions of self-observation or to direct instruction alone. In addition, others have shown that the active involvement of learners with their own learning process is one of the most influential variables in motor learning and performance. In learning practice, motor learning that allows learners to control features of their learning environment has clearly emerged as critically important, with specific self-control features that include practice scheduling, goal setting, task difficulty, and recovery intervals between sessions. Research by Wolf showed that by allowing learners to control the delivery of feedback, the use of physical assistive devices, or the presentation of movement demonstrations, that this can enhance learning when compared with external control, with other people controlling these factors. Video combined with expert modelling. Other researchers have evaluated the effectiveness of expert video models combined with video feedback to improve athletic skills. Boyer et al. Implemented the first study to use video feedback on a set of complex athletic skills. This study used an intervention with 4 young competitive gymnasts on 3 complex gymnastic skills. I couldn't find any regarding weightlifting, any studies regarding weightlifting. In the baseline, the gymnast only received verbal feedback. Intervention used visual feedback by having the gymnast view a video of an expert model followed by a video of him or herself performing the skill. The gymnast then watched the 2 videos side by side with specific points identified in the freeze frames. The gymnasts infrequently achieved the optimal performance criteria of 80 to 100% correctness. However, their skill level did vastly improve. This type of app is available not to many of us. It's actually called Coach's Eye, and it's one I've actually used with some of my students and also some of the athletes I've worked with. Knowledge of performance is also presented in the form of verbal feedback or video feedback regarding the kinematics of a movement. Kinematic information pertains to the limb position and velocity, movement time, and patterns of coordination. When a desired movement outcome depends on interactions among many segments, kinematic feedback has also been demonstrated to be more effective than knowledge of results, KR. Indications are that the real-world movements observed in the athletic arena are multiple degree of freedom movements, which may also benefit more from kinematic knowledge of performance than knowledge of results. I found this article by Susie et al. Very interesting because it's very current regarding the COVID-19 situation at the moment. So in response to the current situation, physical educators and pedagogists have to adjust and look for new methods for providing movement-related feedback, particularly with regard to new distance learning methods involving video-mediated feedback techniques. With this in mind, identifying optimal methods of promoting error correction of movements associated with intricate physical activities, such as weightlifting, via distance learning modalities has become mandatory under such circumstances. The aim of this study, which I must say looked at the snatch movement for teenagers, was to examine the effects of tool-augmented feedback strategies in the absence of the teacher's or coach's intervention, on the correction of technical errors of the snatch during the confinement quarantine period, and to assess the persistence of the improvements in students' learning after a 1-week rest period. It was hypothesized that the video feedback visualization method would be more suitable for correcting any errors in the snatch. To conclude, the study showed that combining feedback from self-observation with direct instruction, which is on the slide as VF/PA, is a powerful means of correcting technical errors in weightlifting movements compared to other conditions of self-observation or to direct instruction alone. To conclude, after reviewing many of the studies, we and through my own personal experience, I would say that video feedback allows the student or athlete to see any areas, giving them a high degree of autonomy and control over the process. However, as again stated by the studies, that additional support is often required and produces much better results. And this can be through modelling or direct input from a coach whilst reviewing the film. But it is the most accessible form of feedback I feel that is available through the use of smart devices and apps, and one that we should encourage and definitely learn a lot more about.